The fourth estate, and Manasseh Azore Awene, undertook an investigative process. In their usual manner, they rely heavily on the right to information law to seek official information from official custody, which the Constitution says the people are entitled to. And they use the information received, they analyze to tell us a story. They attempted doing this. They wrote request upon request, seeking to know the details of a contract between the Ghana Revenue Authority and SML, Strategic Mobilization Limited. They were denied of the basic public documents all the way. But they are journalists, so they know how to find information. And they did. The SML had claimed that it was providing the services of underreporting, diversion, and dilution of fuel products, as well as general non-compliance in the petroleum industry sector. This was the problem for which the states had a solution, but somehow needed another layer of the solution. Manasseh asked the managers of this company whether in fact they provide the services of underreporting, diversion, and dilution of fuel products. And the answer was an emphatic no. Right after that interview, this information that was contained on the company's website was taken down. But again, they are journalists. They are no fools. They are taking screenshots of what was on the company's website before they took this information down. The managers said that this information was put on the website in error. I'm quoting them. Christian Soti, in error. Christian Soti had been your controller general, making sure your public sector wages are paid. Then he found himself in the GRA, working at the very top of the GRA's head's office. Then shortly after he left, he became head of an SML company that, without any previous experience or expertise whatsoever in that industry, secured a contract, sole sourced, unapproved, not once, but twice. Unapproved by the PPA to provide this service. And shortly thereafter, got an additional contract to provide these services for the gold industry and so on. Well, upon an audit, the president has ordered that that aspect be cancelled, be stopped. But what it does in the downstream will continue. So what is the problem? Why are the issues being raised now on the back of the president's actions taken on the audit by KPMG? Why are people faulting the KPMG report despite the confirmations it makes of the investigative piece? Should the report be released in full to the public? We interrogate that. The ILO, International Labour Organization, has done a study of the SSNIT, the Social Security and National Insurance Trust. And it says its reserves are depleting. And there's a timeline to it. It will not be able to pay the benefits, to take care of pensioners anymore. Well, Social Security and National Insurance Trust has just issued a statement. It says, do not worry, they have everything under control. We'll check that too as well. Shortly after, pension funds suffered a hefty blow on the DDEP. Is it set to a second round of a DDEP, so to speak? Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman says this year's election is not about making history in returning a competent former president back to power, or producing the first woman vice president, or bringing the NDC back to power. Although that, she insists, is indispensable in our current circumstances. She says the elections are for a purpose, and the purpose is to hold our country together, to heal Ghana, to pull Ghana from the precipice of destruction, precipice of normalizing corruption, of incomprehensible greed, from deep despair. It is to embrace everyone in building a Ghana that functions. It is to work for a Ghana that, at the very least, can feed itself, where the law truly works, where there is shared prosperity, where democracy has not become a fluke, where people are not abused, and where the basic necessities of life are not denied the majority or eventually anyone. It is a chance to work hard towards a country where citizens do not feel disrespected, are not intimidated, ignored because of the way they vote or the language they speak. It is about the onerous task of rebuilding a broken Ghana, of restoring hope. She insists we have never experienced the levels of greed, unbridled arrogance, unrestrained impunity, sheer dishonesty, barefaced hypocrisy, and incompassion displayed by this incumbent government over the past 7 years and more. She says the task ahead is formidable, much more than it was 4 years ago. Is she changing her politics, spitting fire to an NDC victory? I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. Welcome back. And here is Samson's take. Minister, I titled my take, Arrogance of Power, Shameful Policing. Minister Simon Osei-Mensah's arrogant, ignorant rants and empty threats of legal action against ECG staff in Kumasi and some media houses. Dear police in Kumasi, stop taking instructions that blight your competence, or rather expose your incompetence, and unprofessional conduct. You do not owe any high-rank public officer blind loyalty. In fact, you are not worthy of that respectable uniform if you cannot keep up with the basic norm that you do not obey unlawful instructions, even if it is coming from the commander-in-chief, the president. We are all under law. You see how ECG staff are calling the Ashanti regional ministers bluff and winning the hearts of right-thinking citizens. Try emulating that. The president must be deprecating Simon Osei-Mensah's despicable conduct publicly and reprimanding him if he does not find it to be conduct that warrants his dismissal. We are in Dumso, and we know it is largely a money problem. What is the crime of staff of the ECG switching of power to a university that owes it 600,000 cedis? You are sending such a bad signal. Why should those owing the utility and perhaps contributing to our suffering in this Dumso deserve to enjoy power supply? This is the height of the display of arrogance of power that people are talking about. You can't seem to hear it. Stop the incoherent and lame references to the Securities and Intelligence Act to justify your lawless and disrespectful conduct to poor law-abiding workers. Hospitals, even Parliament, have been denied power over their indebtedness to the ECG. And these critical installations, like the KTU, were forced by this approach to quickly settle part of their bills. Sir, elsewhere, you will not have kept your job to be explaining that you ordered the arrest of the Ashanti East ECG General Manager, Engineer Michael Wiafe, because the university is a security zone by your designation. What a shame. It is baffling in the first place why the police would carry out your unlawful orders. The Constitution, in Article 19, emphasizes that crime is a creature of statute. You cannot point Ghanaians to any law that creates any such thing, prohibiting and penalizing ECG staff for putting out the lights of a school you have decided to designate as a security installation. The minister insists he had a verbal agreement with ECG over the debt, and they breached that agreement by cutting power off to the university without recourse to him. Which police training institution teaches that breach of an agreement, a contract, by a party to that contract is a criminal offense? What incompetence! Who is this police officer? Who are the officers in charge of that police station? Should they continue to keep their job there? They are the kind that just listen to people in power and abuse the ordinary people. Police powers are essentially for the protection of the weak and vulnerable, and not to unlawfully intimidate or help the rich and powerful to abuse those who pay for the uniform and the gun. The only two items that separate you from them while you are on duty. When you are not on duty, you are just like us. You can decide to be wrong and strong, Mr. Minister, and not to apologize to them or withdraw that non-criminal case which they have demanded you withdraw. But sir, we go to court with a course of action. Ask your lawyer to explain it to you. The courts deal with serious business. There is no discernible course of action in that your empty threat to sue the officers and certain media houses. Engineer Wiafe and their association or union's leader, Asamoni, and your colleagues, you have done no criminal or civil wrong by handing Mr. Osei Mensah a bill he ignorantly calls fraudulent simply because he believes it should be about 1,000 and not 1,500 cedis, which is what he often pays. Who tells you that is what is called fraud? That is nothing close to what we call fraud in law. Engineer Wiafe, the minister says you were granted bail after the police took your statement. Sir, that statement is not worth the paper it is written on. Do not honor any bail condition, as it is a joke and an outright unconstitutional conduct. It cannot be carried out, and it does not carry any consequences if you treat it with the contempt it deserves. The Supreme Court, speaking through one of its best minds, Justice Francis Kwega, in the landmark case of Awuni versus Waek in 2004, cautioned that, quote, a nation that stands by and looks on while the rights of the individual are slowly pecked at, eventually pays the ultimate price of finding its own rights eroded. Our mindset should breed excellence, as Anna Nankuman has just told students at the maiden ceremony of the University of Ghana 2024 Annual Academic Prizes Awards. Stop the disrespect. Stop the abuse of power. And that is my take. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. You know for a fact that this is your most authoritative news analysis platform. Thank you to all of you that I encountered in the course of this week in Tema, at the DW Academy, at the CDD training program for journalists in Kumasi. And thank you all for always keeping your dials here and your channels here. Thank you for the encouragement on Samson's take. My guest, on the first issue, we are looking at the KPMG reports as reported by the presidency on the GRA SML deal. Yasewa Sapong, Director of Support Services, SML. Inusa Fuseni is lawyer, former MP Tamale Central, former Minister Lands and Natural Resources, Roads and Highways, and joining us by Zoom, the brightest, Bright Simmons, Honorary Vice President, Imani Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for making time to join us on Newsfile.
Thank you, Samson.
Great. So let's set the tone on the SML subject matter. The presidency, on the 24th of April, issued a statement. It's headed, President Akufo-Addo acts on KPMG's findings and recommendations on the transactions between GRA and SML. It begins with a little history. That the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, on Wednesday, the 27th of March, 2024, received the final report of the audit conducted by KPMG regarding the transaction between the Ghana Revenue Authority and Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited SML. The President has acted on the findings and recommendations of KPMG and has, by letter dated Thursday, 18th April 2024, given directives to the Ministry of Finance and the Ghana Revenue Authority to do a number of things. We need this in context. The findings, among others, are that no technical needs assessment was done prior to the engagement of SML. However, such an assessment was not legally required for engaging SML. After SML was engaged, a Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors Industry Report, a 2021 Ernst & Young audit report commissioned by GRA, and a report by the Revenue Assurance and Compliance Enforcement of the Ministry of Finance all found that there might be under-reporting, under-declaration, and potential revenue leakages. A fact industry watchers all agree to. This is only a footnote. On 3 occasions, that's number 2, between June 2017 and September 2017, GRA sought approval from the Public Procurement Authority, PPA, to use the single source procurement method to engage SML to provide transaction audit services. PPA did not grant approval. Subsequently, GRA engaged SML as a subcontractor to West Blue, which was already providing services to GRA at the port. SML eventually took over the services provided by West Blue when the latter's contract came to an end on the 31st of December 2018. GRA then added external price verification to the services offered by SML and signed a downstream petroleum audit agreement with SML. All these were done without PPA approval. Following a change of leadership at GRA, remember Prof. Ade left the GRA's head also, there were changes. The new leadership sought to regularize the contracts with SML. And on the 27th of August 2020, PPA ratified the procurement processes used to engage SML. In 2023, the Ministry of Finance, GRA, and SML entered into a Revenue Assurance Services contract. 2023 contract. The 2023 contract extended the scope of SML services to include upstream petroleum and minerals audit. PPA approval was obtained for this contract, which is now the governing agreement for the services offered by SML to GRA. Another issue raised by KPMG is the absence of parliamentary approval for the contract, given that they are multi-year contracts under Section 33 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921. Such contracts must have ministerial and parliamentary approval. KPMG also found that there was no evidence that the 2018-2019 contracts, transaction audit services, external price verification, and downstream petroleum audit were submitted to the GRA board for discussion and approval, contrary to the GRA Act, Corporate Governance Manual for governing boards, councils of the public services, and sound and accepted corporate governance practices. The GRA board approved the extension of SML services to cover the auditing of the upstream petroleum and mineral sectors, as specified in the 2023 contract. Point 3. Regarding the transaction audit services, KPMG concluded that SML partially delivered on the service requirements. However, given the observations made during the investigation, GRA may terminate may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service. This is also partly due to GRA's lack of instituting monitoring and evaluation processes to assess the performance of the service and hold its personnel and SML accountable for non-performance. 4. Regarding the external price verification services, KPMG concluded that SML delivered partially on the service requirement and that, given the observations made during the investigations, GRA may not have obtained all the expected benefits from the service. It was noted that ICOMS has inbuilt capabilities of external price verification among other functions. 5. Regarding the downstream petroleum audit services, KPMG determined that there was an incremental volume of 1.7 billion liters and an incremental tax revenue of 2.45 billion for the period under review. There were also qualitative benefits, including a 24/7 electronic real-time monitoring of the outflow and partial monitoring of inflows of petroleum products at depots where SML had installed flow meters. This serves as a deterrent for under-declarations. Other qualitative benefits include 6 levels of reconciliation done by SML to prevent revenue losses to GRA and the sharing of discrepancy reports with GRA to follow up. 6. SML had yet to implement the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services, and therefore there could be no assessment as to whether GRA would derive value or benefit from that service. KPMG noted, however, that those are areas that could have significant revenue leakages, and thus suggested, among other things, that a comprehensive needs assessment be conducted to establish a need for those services. The pricing module used in the contracts was based on a variable fee structure. During its investigations, KPMG noted that such transaction monitoring services are usually priced using a fixed fee pricing module. The total fees paid under the contracts from 2018 to the date of suspension amounted to 1.something billion. No fee has been paid for the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit service. The total fees estimated to be paid to SML under the 2023 contract for 5 years is 5.something billion, which averages to 5.something million, which averages to 1 billion per year. No, 5.1 something billion, which averages to about 1 billion per year. Here, recommendations. It is instructive that we begin this discussion on this note, on the full facts as received from the presidency. KPMG made the following recommendations, says the presidency. The government, acting through Ministry of Finance and the GRA, may terminate the contract with or without cause upon giving 120 days written notice before the effective date of termination stated in the termination notice. Upon termination, the government may be liable to pay SML for services already completed but not yet paid, and the government will not be entitled to a refund of any compensation already paid to SML regardless of the termination clause. B. In the event of termination without cause, the government becomes liable to pay SML a return on investment equivalent to the fair value of SML's investment in the respective contract. The total investment value in the contracts for the transaction audit and external price verification services and downstream petroleum audit services amounts to $44 million. The total investment value in the contract for the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services amounts to $133.4 million US dollars. The total investment value for all the services provided by SML to GRA amounts to $177.5 million US dollars. KPMG noted that SML did not provide supporting documents or relevant information to verify the investments it has made. GRA must verify the investment if any of the services provided under the contracts are terminated. C. The upstream petroleum and minerals audit could be a major source of revenue for the state, and if there are leakages, the impact could be significant. Therefore, KPMG recommended reviewing these services by conducting a comprehensive needs assessment and engaging stakeholders with diverse interests in their respective sectors. Furthermore, KPMG recommended the need for a value for money assessment in the contract performance process. Any contract for the provision of these services should comply with Section 33 of the PFMA Act. For the transaction audit, external price verification, and downstream petroleum audit services, KPMG recommended that since SML has been providing that service for over 4 years, it has gained experience and become more proficient. KPMG thus recommended renegotiating the price levels, including shifting from a variable to a fixed fee structure. Monitoring and evaluation of the services offered by SML should be done periodically in the contract. Also, there should be the incorporation of needs assessment into public procurement practices. The President has accepted the recommendations of KPMG and directs as follows. The upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services have not yet been commenced, and no payments have been made in respect of those services. Therefore, they may be terminated. However, given that the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services could prevent significant revenue leakages, the President has directed that the Ministry and GRA conduct a comprehensive technical needs assessment, value for money assessment, and stakeholder engagement before implementing such services. 2. The transaction audit and external price verification services may also be terminated. According to KPMG's findings, GRA obtained partial value or benefit for those services. This was also due to a lack of monitoring on the part of GRA to ensure that SML performed the services as stipulated in the contracts. KPMG's investigations found that GRA has introduced external price verification tools as part of ICOMS among its other functions. This renders the reliance on SML for external price verification redundant. 3. There is a clear need for the downstream petroleum audit services provided by SML. GRA and the state have benefited from these services since SML commenced providing them. There has been an increase in volumes of 1.7 billion liters and an increase in tax revenue to the state of 2.45 billion Ghana cedis. KPMG also observed that there were qualitative benefits, including a 24/7 electronic real-time monitoring of outflow and partial monitoring of inflows of petroleum products at depots where SML had installed flow meters, and 6 levels of reconciliation done by SML. This minimizes the occurrence of under-declaration. However, it is important to review the contract for downstream petroleum audit services, particularly the fee structure. Given the experience and proficiency of SML over the last 4 years of providing this service, the President has directed that the fee structure be changed from a variable to a fixed fee structure. Other provisions of the contract worth reviewing include clauses on intellectual property rights, termination, and service delivery expectations. Finally, SML's performance in any renegotiated contract should be monitored and evaluated periodically to ensure that it meets expectations. Any renegotiated contract should be compliant with Section 33 of the PFMA Act, the Ministry of Finance and Ghana Revenue Authority are to give effect to the above directives of the President immediately and provide the Office of the President with an update on the steps taken. The President has extended his sincere gratitude to KPMG for the thorough nature of the audit conducted. This is under the signature of the Director of Communications at the Office of the President, Eugene Ahin. Just a sneak peek into the documentary investigative piece that led to this audit.
Report or identify issues of under-declaration.
No, we don't get into that. That's 3 billion. I'm not. That's why I told you from the beginning. I said I don't know about this 3 billion.
As we speak this morning, still on your website.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. In fact, to be honest, me, I don't even know website matter.
Per current arrangement, SML Ghana is entitled or will be paid over $100 million every year. This contract is for 10 years.
It's essentially a plug-in into the revenue stream of the state, taking money for no job done, essentially.
Using the ultrasonic flow meter at the outlet there is not the best way to manage the time.
In a control room in Tema in the Greater Accra region, officials of Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited explained their services to the Fourth Estate News team.
We have transistors which are engulfed in the ultrasonic clampons or the real sets.
The company tried to convince our news team of its wild claims that it had helped to save billions of Ghana cedis that would have been lost in the downstream petroleum sector but for its intervention. More importantly, it tried to justify why it receives payments worth millions of Ghana cedis from the government of Ghana through its contract with the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA.
Currently, we are installing a tank gauging system.
By the end of our second day at SML Ghana, however, we were convinced that a company, with the help of Ghana's media, had made false and unsubstantiated claims and is paid millions of cedis in a deal that appears to lack value for money. A few hours after our meeting, some of the claims began to disappear from the company's website.
We were shocked at one point when government said they were bringing in an SML to actually sit at the depot where the product is lifted. And in fact, that is where there isn't much problem. Because when the product is lifted, MPA is able to see, how much product has been lifted through their gauging, tank gauging systems, and also the metering systems at the depot. So that was never the problem. The problem really was, how do you track it to where the tax is actually collected, or is supposed to be collected, for you to be able to make the money. So from day one, the importance of SML was questioned by all the industry players. You can talk to all the players in the sector and they will tell you that where SML is positioned, they cannot be doing revenue assurance for the state.
SML Ghana, like other private sector service providers, was engaged to curtail huge losses in the downstream petroleum sector. Some oil marketing companies, OMCs, which lifted petroleum products from the nation's depots, sold the products and refused to pay hundreds of millions of cedis of the tax, levies, and margins components on the petroleum products.
Some of these debts become quite heavy based on the OMC's liftings levels. So that's why some of these debts, and if the person is not stopped immediately from loading petroleum products, then it means you'll be accumulating as it goes on.
Interestingly, the tax is not even paid by the traders or the OMCs. It is the people who pay the tax. So if you buy any liter, every liter of petroleum product you buy, there is a tax component, which is about 2 cedis 30 pesos. That is supposed to go to government. So on top of the value of the petroleum product and the margins that are supposed to go to the business, government has imposed tax that the OMCs are just supposed to collect the tax and hand it over to the state. But in most cases, they don't. And over time, we've seen about 20% of revenues due to the state leaking into private hands.
That's just a peek into the documentary that has led to this KPMG audit and also a suit pending in the court. Bright, thank you once again for your time. In the next 20 minutes, Bright is going to give his position and that of the CSOs, and you saw they issued a statement reacting to the presidency's release on their audits. Bright, let's hear you.
Samson, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Very clearly, sir.
First of all, we want to, of course, express our gratitude to Multimedia and Joy for the prime time support that you give to advocacy in this country by allowing us to explain these things to the people. The second thing is to reestablish again that we are all here discussing this issue because the fourth estate, with policy support or policy analysis support from ACEP, the Africa Center for Energy Policy, decided to delve deep into these matters, produce a documentary which sparked this whole investigation. In the president's release, if you read it carefully, nowhere does he mention this. He ends up praising KPMG, which was paid to do this work. Not a single word of support for the fourth estate and the like. We are happy at Imani that we're providing additional support to ACEP. We've done that already. We continue to do that going forward. But I think it's important in this country we recognize when people are contributing to public service. Let's take issues one by one. Some of them you've already, quite extensively hinted at them. What are SML's contracted services? There are 4 main ones. They do transaction audit services. Essentially, they look over your shoulder if you present information related particularly to import duties and taxes that are at the port level. So I'm not going to go into great detail, but you know that these SML's involvement in this activity in Ghana was based on an attempt to single source them to provide a service, when at that time, SML, in June 27, when this was done, had just been incorporated. Bear that in mind. In June 2017, when attempts were made to bring SML to come and provide these transaction audit services, even though companies like West Blue and others were already performing it at the port, SML had no track record, not only in this particular line of business, but in auditing in general. And in this country, we have many auditing companies with capacity to do anti-fraud, etc., etc. This company had no background, nobody ahead of them. Somehow, somebody at the finance ministry or GRA, N.O.A, GRA, had heard of their unique competencies when they are not being formed as a company. So that by June 2017, they were attempting to single source them to provide the service, which is to audit transactions related to tax revenue at the ports. 3 times they went to the Public Procurement Authority. And 3 times the Public Procurement Authority, which usually is not very strong as a bulwark against what politicians want to do, said that for this one we cannot approve. It's too problematic. So what did they do? GRA engaged the company as a subcontractor for West Blue. And then what did they do? They eventually kicked West Blue out. There was a huge scandal in this country for many, many months as the government attempted to impose new providers in the port. When West Blue was kicked out, without PPE approval, this company was then made the main contractor. Then they added another service to it, external price verification. Essentially, when we are bringing things from overseas, the price of the item is correlated with the tax you pay. But if you lie about how much you bought the item for, you could change the amount of tax you pay in Ghana. So we want you to verify how much the pricing is before that item is brought to the country. We added that to SML. At that time, not even the board of GRA was aware. Somehow, somebody in power had determined that this company must be inserted in, regardless of what it takes. Secondly, no PP approval. Then they decided that, this company is too good. And these matters happened very quickly before we had established any of these benefits, etc., and CBOAD or Ernst & Young reports and things like that are coming. Remember, keep that in mind. They decided then that they had to add another service to the list, which was the downstream petroleum monitoring, which simply means that when you go and buy petrol at the filling station, that tax that you are supposed to pay there, the OMC is supposed to collect it and take it to the government. Sometimes they don't do that. For that reason, they are going to help to prevent it. And I'll explain later on in the presentation why that makes no sense. And there's no logical basis for any of these arguments. Then, when it became very apparent that time was running, there was no approval, but much of this has not been regularized. Eventually, the government decided that, okay, we need to insert SML into the biggest port of all, the oil that is produced in Ghana offshore, and the gold and diamonds and other things that we produce in the country inshore. So what do? We set up a contract in which every single ounce of gold produced in this country, they will get a percentage. Every single ounce of gold, 0.75%. And every single barrel of oil that we produce in this country, this company will get 0.75% off the price of that oil. It was at that point that it was quite clear that this was going to be a massive, massive, massive bonanza for whoever it is that supports this agenda. So we need to get regularization. It was at that point that the matter was taken to the board. It was at that point that the matter was taken to PPA for ratification. Because remember, this company was already in there and doing the business anyway. So whatever PPA wanted to do at that point was more or less moot. So this is the history of the SML agenda. It's important that people bear that in mind. These are facts established by the president himself based on his review of the KPMG agreement. And let's go on to the second key issues. There are two aspects of the KPMG reports, which nobody has seen except the president and a few people. There are facts that KPMG has established, and then there are analysis that KPMG has done on the facts based on which it's made recommendations. It's very important that we separate the two, otherwise you get confused. So the key facts that KPMG established is what you've established, which is what you've described to your viewers. One of them being that the services are illegal. They are illegal because even the new contract that have been ratified by PPA and signed by the board, because of the Public Financial Management Act being multi-year contract, they must go back to Parliament. So until this contract, the current contract, the 2023 contract that governs the arrangement, and for which this company has been paid 1 billion Ghana cedis, until that contract goes back to Parliament, everything they are doing there is illegal. That's a fact that is established by KPMG. This is not analysis. The second fact is that, as I've already said, on the back of this illegality, 1 billion cedis have been paid. The third is that PPA does not have the power to retrospectively clear illegalities. The fourth is that in all of this, we are giving money to the company without knowing how much the company is spending and whether indeed the cost of these services warrants that kind of payments. No investment appraisals were done. But when we were asked to provide documents to enable KPMG establish how much it is that they've invested in this service, they refused to provide the documents or they could not provide enough documents. Another fact that has also been established that there was no need for need analysis or value for money assessment. The president has now asked the Ministry of Finance and the GRA to go ahead and act on his instructions. We expect them to issue a press release telling us what exactly they will do. But first and foremost, there must be a value for money analysis. And the CSO movement in this country have offered pro bono services from tax analysts and petroleum economists around the world that will ensure that they don't spend additional money, unlike the money that has already been spent on this report. We also know that the live contract that exists today, the 2023 contract, still entitles SML to make almost $100 million a year for 10 years. Why is it 10 years? Because a 5-year contract, renewable again. And we know from the history of this company that there is no way in which that renewal will not be achieved. But at the very least, if you are doing an analysis, you look at exposure, and that exposure includes the possibility of renewal. So where do we get $100 million from? You look at the likely price increases in minerals and petroleum over the time, historical trend, and then you compute what would be the likely price. Then you strike that 0.75% for oil prices and the $0.75 per barrel for oil. So you look at production, and then you strike the 0.75% for price of gold, manganese, and other things we sell, and that's where we come with the to the $1 billion. We are happy to look at alternative analysis if SML or KPMG have done it. But this is based on what we have looked at from projections point of view. So these are the critical fact findings that KPMG made. Now, when KPMG moves from the facts to making analytical conclusions and then using that to make recommendations, here we have a problem. We have a problem because, as we stated from the outset, KPMG has a conflict of interest in this matter. It's been a service provider to GRA. It regularly looks for new business from GRA. We did not see how KPMG was going to be strict on GRA sufficiently because of this underlying challenge that it's continuing to do business with GRA and looks forward to getting more business from GRA. So that was a problem. We saw that in South Africa when KPMG was brought in to review the famous Gupta contracts. And here, because of the fact that KPMG had these public sector contracts, it could not do a sufficiently objective job. And the fact of the matter is that KPMG's findings are now being misrepresented, even at the factual level. So even the facts that I've just said to you, people are trying to, spin and claim that KPMG have cleared SML. That's not what has happened. So KPMG's reputation impacted by this matter. And we know what happened in South Africa. KPMG leaders had to be sacked. KPMG more or less was almost kicked out of that country because of a similar situation where they were brought in to review a public sector contract and they could not do the job sufficiently. So my argument is that we must stick to the facts that they found, they established, because the facts are facts. Analysis and recommendations, we don't think KPMG is the right entity to do that because it's commercial interest. Secondly, there have also been analyses that are actually flawed. So forget about the conflict of interest. And when you look at KPMG's history in some of these matters, where you have these very sensitive matters, from the Rolls-Royce matter to the FIFA matter to the Co-op Bank to the HBOS, there have been consistent patterns where sometimes, because it's in a bank, it has a client that is also supposed to safeguard. It makes some of these analytical conclusions that leads to either losses or in some cases leads to corruption. So it's a very well-established pattern, and you can see on the screen major events in the world that anybody can go and check, from the Rolls-Royce, FIFA, HBOS issues, etc., etc. Now we come to the core of the matter. Do we need SML at all in this chain? First and foremost, there is the National Petroleum Authority. There is the main regulator in the sector. They are the ones who look at everything to do with the downstream petroleum sector. So all the fuel you buy, all the LPG, the aviation fuel, etc., etc., etc. Now, FPA has been telling this country that it is doing exactly what the SML claims it's doing for many years now, collecting millions of dollars to pay all manner of contractors. And on the basis of that, it's been telling us that there's been about 41% growth as of 2022 based on this work. We also know, in addition to spending all of these millions of dollars doing these specific activities, they've enlisted the Vice President of Ghana and his office to become a major proponent of the digitalization of the entire value chain. We have the ERDMS that was mentioned in the documentary. That means that you cannot load fuel in this country unless the government knows about it. Which means that there are flow meters that have already been established, not only at the level of the depot, but also at the retail level, and connecting the two. We know that money has been spent to import machinery from Singapore and elsewhere by ACIS and North Africa to do exactly the kind of thing that SML is doing, to put flow meters at the depot, and they've already started at the retail level, and they are continuing. They are spending more money. The National Petroleum Authority tells us that the pilot was successful. 4,000 state filling stations were identified. 20 of them were used for the pilot. They are buying more equipment and implementing it there. And they set up a command center, and then they are putting some of these flow meters in depots as well to connect the depots to the command center, and then connect the retail centers, the retail outlets to the command center. So it's very simple. MPA is doing this automation at the retail level, and it's also decided to do it at the wholesale level. Then what exactly do we need another company to come in and put in another ultrasonic flow meters, etc., in these same locations, purporting to do the same thing? Either one of them is lying to us. Because if you look at the tenders that MPA has floated in this country to transform the whole fuel value chain, which everybody can go online and look at those tenders and the rest of it, and look at the descriptions of those projects, there's absolutely no difference. On top of that, the GRA itself, even before icons came to the picture, SSNIT had incorporated their system, the GCMS, into the ERDMS. So essentially, when the fuel arrives in the port, It's already declared into a system that both GRA and MPA knows. And then it's connected to the DMS. So meaning that if you go and later pick fuel up from any level, that fuel that you pick that is already flagged. The problem has always been that in between transmission, they claim that there are technical losses. How you find out technical losses does not depend on the flow meter at one point or the other. That's why I take that fuel from the depot and some of it leaks on my way to the refill station. No flow meter or whatever will be able to address that matter. The only thing we can know is that you take 100 here, you deposited 80 here. So we are now sure that only 80 liters are now taxable. That we can know. And that system is already in place by connecting items via DMS and the flow meters that MPA is continuing to now implement at the level of the depots, and which millions of dollars are being spent. We know, for instance, that the industry members, which is what my very good friend Ben Boache explained to you in the documentary, have stated that the work that SML is doing, the structure of the solution itself, is not viable because it's based on temperature shifts and temperature patterns that are not reconcilable with the way in which MPA has set up the whole arrangement, which is that you must transport at 20 degrees Celsius. And they have said this openly. Everybody in the industry is aware that these claims have been made that the Honeywell, SCADA, and remote terminal unit and the rest that the company SML is reporting to use is not compatible with the MPA structure that they've set up in the industry. We will now come to the heart of the matter. And here is where we disagree with KPMG the most, if indeed what the president is saying they said is the case. And it's in KPMG's interest that this report comes out because people will continue to misrepresent what they did for whitewashing purposes. But if indeed that's what they said, that there have been incremental value increase in the volume of fuel consumed. Let's bring all of this down. They are saying that Ghanaians are buying more petrol. And because Ghanaians are buying more petrol, more taxes are being paid. And all of that is due to the work of SML. The question that we have to ask you is, historically, were we seeing increases in fuel consumption before SML came? Have the rate of increase changed to the point where we can say that SML's intervention has made a difference? Look at the graph that is on the screen. You will see that the pattern of increases in how much fuel we consume in this country is linked strictly to economic conditions. And for the different types of products involved, it's linked to economic use pattern changes or use case changes. That is why aviation fuel, during the time that we had COVID, the consumption of aviation fuel collapsed because my planes were not flying into and out of Ghana. And in the case of petrol, there are more cars every year being registered. On top of that, we have a lot of usage of diesel because industrial outputs in some cases have increased. People are using more generators, a whole bunch of things. You cannot therefore make any claim that the increase in petroleum consumption, or gasoline consumption, or diesel consumption, etc., can be tied to SML unless you do sophisticated statistical analysis that isolate the historical trend. That says that if there was nothing at all happening except the original practice of more cars and things like that, this is the way the trend line will have looked. But because of SML, that has changed. But when you look at the map, SML entered the picture in 2020. The rate of increase was the same before and after. That's the kind of analysis we want to look at the KPMG report to see how they address that issue. Because without that, we cannot make any basis at all. We cannot establish any basis at all that there's an increment in consumption. On top of that, taxes are also linked to prices sometimes. Some of the levies and things that we have on the fuel are price sensitive. We know that the price of fuel doesn't stay the same. We have changes in pricing. These changes in prices affect the tax take of the government. How do you isolate the part that is due to SML? The only way you can do that is there's only one scientific method. You need a baseline for under declaration in the sector. Because remember that it's not that if the fuel consumption increased by 10%, everybody who sold that extra 10% will hide their taxes. They will pay taxes. It is some percentage who do so. It is identifying that percentage that then gives us the real measure of our risk as a country. They can say that, okay, anytime if fuel consumption increased by 100 liters, we know from this baseline study that 10 liters is underdeclared. In that case, that 10 liters cost us 100 cedis. So if SML has come in and we've seen that volume has increased by this extra margin, then we suspect that under declaration which are vanished from that extra whatever due to SML's work is this percentage. You don't use the overall increment because otherwise you're assuming that every time we increase consumption of petroleum, everybody who sold that extra petroleum refused to pay tax, which cannot be correct. So you have to use the baseline to make the analysis. Secondly, everything that you have talked about in terms of increasing of whatever has nothing to do with the problem we face, which CBOA, Ernst & Young, and the rest have been talking about. What we face is not establishing that there's liability, that there's a tax that somebody has not paid. The problem is that when we've established that somebody owes the tax, they still don't pay you. That is why NPA has a list of OMCs, oil marketing companies, that have not remitted the tax. It's not like they are hiding their way, and because of that, the losses are all due to the fact that we don't know who has elected which fuel, and we don't know how much they've sold, so we don't know what tax we should collect. No, a lot of the losses are due to the fact that we know the businesses who have collected the fuel because they are DMS, and we know they've sold it, but they have still not remitted the taxes. Because remember that when I pick up the fuel, it takes me some time to sell, and over that range of period, unless you are still monitoring closely, if I've not remitted all the taxes, you will not know until you know for sure when all the fuel was sold. So those time lags and things create complications in ability to remit the tax. What has that got to do with flow meters and things like that anyway? Except of course that there is smuggling and other things like that, where those smuggling activities and the rest require us to also monitor the fuel leaving the country legally and those that may be living illegally. All of these matters are already in the NPA digital suite, which SML doesn't provide. So SML does not have capacity to know the trusts that are leaving the country, sending fuel to Burkina Faso, whether they are genuine or they are not genuine, and things like that. So on what basis can we say that we can attribute blocking all or seeing all these loopholes to SML? That cannot make sense. It's the infrastructure as a whole that NPA has put in place allows that to happen. And that infrastructure was there before in SML. And while SML has been there, it's still going on. And Ghanaians are paying for it. If all that infrastructure is useless and everything is about SML, then let's cut all of those things at Rock Africa, near DMS. All of these service providers who are also taking millions of dollars. Let's cut them all out and leave everything to SML. We ensure that, and we are completely certain, that when it comes to try to expand this service to cover the minerals and the petroleum, it was simply a Japan issue at the time. When the Japan field, somebody decided that, okay, if we cannot get the percentage of the royalties that we wanted from every ounce of gold sold in Ghana, then we'll do even more. We'll add the oil as well, and we'll create a mechanism to get a certain percentage out of that, because it doesn't make any sense to try and claim that because the tallow and whatever is lying about the oil produced, you will use some mechanism to try and establish that, and for every barrel of oil we produce, you will then be entitled to a percentage. What logic is that? So that KPMG says that we should move from a variable fee to a fixed fee. They are not explaining the claim, or the president is not explaining the claim people understand. What this contract meant was that every barrel of oil produced in this country, this company will get $0.75. Every barrel. Every ounce of gold produced in this country, this company was going to get a percentage of the price. On what logic? This is what we fought against in the Japan, and this is what we're going to continue to fight against. See every tool available, including making representations to international partners and things like that, until there's a proper assessment and not a whitewash. Thank you very much.
You want to see the full reports, right?
Absolutely, without doubt.
You are disappointed that it didn't come along the press release?
RTI demanded.
Right.
So the president should do the honorable thing and release it.
All right. Right. If you have time, please hold on there because we just may come back to you. And Honorable Nusa Hussaini, he ends on a note of a Japa and SML in suit and tie. Is that suspicion of state capture by people in government and seeking to benefit even if it happened that they left government? Is it fair? Or I'm asking the wrong person?
Well, thank you, Samson, thank you for having me this morning. And I should thank Bright and all the civil society organizations, and particularly the Fourth Estate, for doing a comprehensive expose on the SML and other matters. This government, Nana Akufo-Addo's government, has recorded more than 100 scandals since it took over power. Samson, has it come to your attention as a journalist and a legal person that Nana Akufo-Addo has become incredulously predictable in matters concerning the behavior and conduct of his appointees, especially where they touch and concern criminal conduct? when he appointed KPMG to do this analysis of the contract and investigate into the circumstances surrounding the award of the contract to SML, many people raised suspicion because of the potential conflict of interest situation in which KPMG was going to find itself. Many other people said that the president will whitewash the report if it was damning.
He hasn't done that, has he?
Yes.
He has not.
You have not seen the report, have you?
I've seen at least the portions that he has
The
related
redacted
to
portions.
us.
The redacted portions.
Yes.
So, and then you are giving him the benefit of the doubt. You are entitled to that. But what prevents the president from releasing the entire report? Are we not entitled to an open, transparent, and accountable leadership of this country? I mean, clearly, it should leave you in no doubt that institutions established to serve the public, when they are captured by powerful private interests, it must manifest itself in contracts of that nature. Contracts that flagrantly violate the laws of the country, fail to comply with the institutions established for the purposes of securing value for money for the people of this country. It leaves you in no doubt that there must have been something compelling enough to motivate a minister to ignore all the safeguards in our laws, which would ensure that we have value for money for contracts entered into with companies.
You say contracts that violate laws.
Yes.
The facts from what the presidency has fed us so far, 2 occasions, PPA approval was not given.
Yes.
Was sought but not given.
Yes.
But they went ahead.
Yes.
But subsequently,
yes,
a new regime of the GRA went and did a ratification. And you know that in law,
my brother,
that it cures all the wrong.
No, ex facto ratification of an illegal contract does not operate to restore the illegality and clean the contract of the illegality that was committed earlier on. It doesn't do that.
Illegality because of what?
Illegality because it failed to comply. First of all, the contract ought to have been laid before Parliament. It was not laid. Section 33 of the Public Financial Management Act. The contract was supposed to be approved by a GRA board. Was it approved? No. So if GRA board then goes to PPA for a ratification of an otherwise illegal contract, does it operate to make the contract legal? Does it? Then if that is so, what will be governance about?
What is illegality about? Even though KPMG ends, according to the president's release, by requiring a needs assessment. Whilst it says the processes lacked needs assessment, it emphasizes that that is not a requirement of law. But when it was done with the entire project, it says going forward, you should do it with a needs assessment.
Yes, so they were quite frank in that recommendation that because needs assessment, the conduct of needs assessment was not a prerequisite, okay, of a contract, okay, and so because of that, you can hold them at fault for failing to do a needs assessment before the award of the contract. But mind you, look at the caveat. They themselves, KPMG, recognizes that a contract of such a nature must have a needs assessment. Because on what basis are you entering the contract? On what basis?
So it may be prudent, but it is not unlawful. So they have done it.
Well, I'm not going on the basis of the non-compliance or non-performance of the needs assessment to invalidate the contract.
Okay.
I'm saying that there were provisions of the statute that required compliance that were never complied with. And not having complied with those provisions, you can waive them off. You can't. Can you? You can't. And doesn't it strike you as odd that in all the discussions that we are having, we've not heard that the Attorney General's opinion was sought.
Why do you need Attorney General's opinion?
Who is the legal advisor to government and by extension the state?
There was an audit for KPMG to do.
No. I mean the contract. I'm not talking about the president just exercised his powers under Article 58 to appoint KPMG. I'm not talking about that. That's an eminent domain. I'm saying that you are entering into a contract to bind the state. And you're going to pay huge amounts of money, public money, to that contractor. And you don't need the Attorney General's advice.
You don't know that for a fact.
I know that for a fact because in all the reports, and as a lawyer and a former member of parliament and a politician, in reading all the reports, I have been looking out for the Attorney General's opinion on the contract.
It's possible in the report itself, KPMG may have stated that Attorney General gave this report or that report.
Yeah, so it's possible. Speculations are always welcome, but I'm saying that I've not seen one. And I'm not prepared to speculate. Now, but when even the second contract that was prepared, sent to, where they thought of adding the upstream sector and the mining sector to the contract, go read the letter that was written by the director who calls himself Chef de Cabinet. That contract was prepared by the legal department of the Ministry of Finance and sent to the GRA and advises the GRA to send it to their legal department for review. Nowhere in that letter is it mentioned that after a review, the contract should be sent to the Attorney General's department. So clearly, something obscure was happening. There was a clear intention to keep the contract out of the public space. And so, that is why I support civil society organization, that such a matter must have an open, transparent, rigorous, and meritocratic evaluation of the contract and the outcomes of the matters.
You recognize that this is also being looked into by the OSP, Office of Special Prosecution.
The OSP ought to have, immediately the report came out, I thought that the OSP would have conducted a corruption risk assessment. And by now, the OSP should have even been out with this report. Because Christian Soti, who is the MD of SML, was the controller of this country.
Controller and Accountant General
of this country between the years 2005 to 2009. He was. Now, in between 2017 to 2019, he was the technical advisor to the Customs Ghana Revenue Authority.
Commissioner General.
And so, on what basis would such a person who haven't occupied those offices now transition into SML, which is providing critical service, in their opinion, to the...
We may all be asking questions about this, but what exactly is wrong about it? That he has been your Controller and Accountant General, and I suppose he still is a board member of the Internal Audit Agency. And then he occupied the position you speak about, technical advisor to the GRA Commissioner General. Then, in the year 2000, when he steps down from that job, he goes to manage SML, which has secured a contract 2 years earlier with the GRA.
Everything is wrong with that.
Can't the relationship be severed from the contractual relations?
Everything. actually a red flag. That the person who was technical advisor to the GRA at the time this contract was entered into, which contract was opaque, was not made available to the public, did not go through all the standards of scrutiny, has now transited to manage the company. Did he influence the award of the contract? Did he have anything to do with the establishment of the contract? Did he see any loophole that he's seeking to exploit that led to the formation of a contract? Was there insider dealing? There leads to a lot of questions. This is why you cannot just wish this thing away. You can't.
Interesting.
That's why we all must be worried.
Interesting. I'm imagining the cross-examination if he appears in court.
Yes.
Because they have sued their fourth estate.
Yes. And Samson, my concluding statement. Sometimes I find it very difficult to talk about a president because all of us, while in private practice, admired him when he was on his feet. But have you realized, since assuming the presidency, the nearest Akufo-Addo has come to admitting wrongdoing of his of his appointees was the fact that he admitted an error of judgment by reason of being misled by his minister in the Americas. That's the nearest he's come to accepting culpability. Is it good enough for good governance? No. No.
I remember there was Osafo comments. He later came to say, by hindsight, Osafo should not have said Aisha Wang.
On hindsight. But as a president, if your minister makes comments that goes to the very foundation of your country, and that is freedom and justice, that everybody or anybody who commits a crime, the people of Ghana must have justice if that crime is committed against us. Okay. That your minister weighs that for financial inducement, financial support. The president keeps quiet, keeps mute until Aisha Wang resurfaced and was caught. That gave the president a voice. But I say that you can go check. The nearest the president has come to admitting culpability of the conduct of his ministers was on the basis of being misled. That was all. Even in the case of Cecilia Dapa, where we expected the minister to condemn the fact that the president to condemn the fact that a minister of state has such huge amounts of money at home, and prudence required that that money be kept in the bank. The president told us that he believed in the credibility and the innocence of the minister.
Our standards are not the same. In South Africa, I think, was it a speaker of parliament or somebody like that had, was it 20,000 or how much was it? They suffered because they kept that money in the house.
In the house?
In the UK, similar situations have happened. But our standards are not the same.
Our standards are not the same, and that's why our democracy
let me come to SML now, and thankfully, Yasa Wasapong is here. Well, you have, on the back of the president's release, been saying that you have been vindicated in this process. Help explain to Ghanaians what you mean by that.
Samson, thank you for having us here, and thanks to your cherished viewers for this opportunity to share our SML narrative with them. In the earlier submission, you talked about the so-called expose that was leveled against SML. Now, we say that the KPMG's report, as President has issued a statement on it, exonerates SML and confirms the need for the company's proven services because, first of all, an allegation has been leveled against SML that we have taken a 10-year contract, which has been disproved. Second, an allegation was leveled against us that we have taken $100 million or been paid $100 million, which is not true. Again, in the documentary, it says that there is duplication of work, there is duplication of effort to the work that NPA is doing. And it has been repeated here, I will come to that. But that is clearly lack of understanding of domain knowledge. Because I have proof here, and I will give evidence that NPA endorsing the coming to the downstream, the initiative taken by GRA to bring SML on board in the downstream, I will give evidence to that. So that one also has been put down because SML is doing a fantastic job. And we are adding benefit to the revenue generation in the downstream petroleum. Now, the GRA awarded the 2023 consolidated contract to SML following due processes. That's what we have to say about this. Because SML is a legit company who practices best practices. We are ethical and we will not do anything that is misconduct. The other thing also is that SML, the whole contract is a risk-reward contract. That means that SML bears the financial cost of the whole contract. Government has not given SML a peso. Everything that we have done so far has been paid for by SML. And then the payments that we have received also is a performance base. That means that what government is getting in the downstream is not what we are being paid for. We are paid for based on the performance. So if when we came, the benchmark for the volumes that were tax volumes was around 240 million liters. That we don't touch it. Government is not going to pay us from there. But anything that we add from the benchmark, which we have raising the volumes in the taxable volumes from 240 million liters to 450 million liters. So the difference between these volumes is what we are paid on. So basically, SML is being paid on what the additional or excess gain volume that we add to what is there. That is what we mean by the SML's, the contract is a performance-based contract. Now, SML has fully sponsored the contract and is delivering. Government has not paid a peso. When you look at this, this is an exoneration against what was leveled against us, that we have been given this, we have 10 years, we are duplicating effort and all of that. That is why we say that SML has been exonerated by the KPMG's report, given the president's statement from it. Now, I want to...
You've mentioned a few things. I just want us to get our viewers and listeners to also follow us. As you may be aware, there's one important thing you have mentioned, but it is a central question in your suit against the Fourth Estate in the court, and I'm their lawyer. Right. So I will not interrogate that for ethical reasons. But you say that SML's experience has been proving. The report is to the effect that now you have gained 4 years experience. You had absolutely no experience at the start. Ghanaians are asking, because this is their money, how did you get such a contract by sole source when you don't have prior experience? Because according to the law, to gain that kind of contract by sole source, in this respect, you would have gained it because you are the only ones with the best experience in the field. Yeah.
SML's solution that we are offering is the one of its kind. It's not a generic solution that you can go to the market and buy. We've heard people saying, you are deploying meters, meters can be bought. Yes, you can buy meters. We've seen some of the industry players who have gone to buy the meters. It's there. What you do with the meters and the benefits that the meters is able to bring. That is what makes the difference. SML has fused together proprietary software and hardware technologies to be able to give the innovative solution that we have given to the problem that was there. Now, what we can say about this is that what makes a business, and then when we come to not having experience, it is not true. SML was giving the downstream contract because we have proven service with GRA. And the transaction audit is a proven service enough because it's a replication. We have deployed one of our audit and assurance solution in the transaction audit. And based on that, they said that we have this same issue. And we also did our need assessment and presented to GRA an unsolicited proposal. And we said, look, the issue of revenue leakage, that is becoming a national security issue. We have a solution to it.
No, the question of experience. When Manasseh, they engage your boss, he spoke about the company previously being a timber company and has now come to do this job. And I'm asking, convince Ghanaians, were you involved in rendering such services, to anybody at all whatsoever, to be able to win sole or single source, as it were, contract? You know that in clause 40 of section 40 of the Act for Procurement, you can be source single or sole source where the goods that we are looking for, the works or services that we are looking for, are only available from a particular supplier or contract, or if a particular supplier or contractor has exclusive rights in respect of the goods, works or services, and no reasonable alternative or substitute exists. This is the overriding guidelines. And the people in the industry, you hear some of them, Ben Boachi, they tell us about the other players who already existed and how they can't understand how you got it. The second requirement is where there is an urgent need for the goods, works or services, and engaging in tender proceedings or any other method of procurement is impractical due to unforeseeable circumstances giving rise to the urgency, which is not the result of a dilatory conduct on the part of the procurement entity. And finally, where owing to a catastrophic event, there is an urgent need for the goods, works or technical services, making it impractical to use other methods of procurement because of the time involved in using those methods.
Okay, Samson, like when you started, you said you are a legal person. I'm not. So with the issue of PPA, with the issue of sole sourcing, I will leave it with the legal people. But what I have to say about this matter with relating to expertise in that, the question that I want to ask is that with what you are reading, it's talking about innovation. What SML has brought is an innovative solution that does not exist. It's just like before Facebook, there was no Facebook.
Where did you come from? That's basically the question. It's not a question of law.
SML is a company on its own. Okay.
With experience in what?
With collaborating and part. The point is, what makes a company? For instance, we are here multimedia. I think that your CEO, you are not the CEO. What he did was to have the vision. He had the dream. He brought experts like yourself together and then financed it, and it's working. So SML had a vision that for a country to be able to offer, for a country to be able to realize the full potential of revenue growth in the sector, you need to leverage innovative solutions. We have done the needs assessment, and we know that GRA don't have a domain full cycle control. There are gaps. And that is why there is tax revenue leakage. And it's rapidly becoming a national security issue. And we said, we have a solution.
Okay, so we should discount experience here.
Experience is that you bring the team. And what we have done is that we went straight to Houston. We have collaborative and partnership arrangement with top-notch, number one industry experts.
I've been on a procurement board as its lawyer before, and they take the things that they need to take. Once there is no mention or evidence of experience, we just take you off. You don't qualify, you just get out. The need for, SSNIT documentation, tax documentation. Once you don't provide it, we just take you out, you are gone. And then we consider all others who may have. But here's the question. Are people justified to say the PPA on 2 occasions declined giving approval for this because of this issue, that you didn't have experience?
Like I said, this is a legal issue, purely legal issue. And I would not want to put myself there. But what I would say is that a contract can go back and forth when it's getting done properly. It doesn't make it illegal. It doesn't make it bad. It's like writing the thesis or even getting the visa. You can be bounced many times. But when you are ready,
there are basic things you need to get the visa. If you don't submit the basic things, you'll be thrown out.
So when you submit it, they give it to you. So you can go for 3 times. And when you submit what they want, they give to you. There are many people who have gone for the visas, been bounced 4 times, 8 times. But when you go and you give them what they want,
you think this is a good example in this context?
If you are writing, the contract was in the making, and it goes through processes. You see? And that is what has happened. It's no different. People who know, like I've said, I'm not a legal person, but legal people, when you engage them, they will tell you that this is not illegal. At the end of the day, what matters is that the contract has been signed. SML is working legally in this country. That is what matters. And when it comes to experience, we have partners that we work with who have hundreds of years of industry experience. And that is what matters.
You also mentioned
proving service also from the transaction audit qualifies us to be able to do the downstream work because it's the same audit and assurance.
You mentioned that there is something that you have been vindicated about a payment of $100 million, right? You were reading. Do you want to read that again, that you have not been paid?
$100 million was not paid to SML.
Okay. So this is in reaction to the documentary?
The documentary.
Right. Have you read or listened to the documentary? They didn't say you have been paid. They say that the value,
But you cannot say a value of a value of a contract when the contract has not been done, when the contract is based on performance. So you are making estimations that would mislead viewers.
So you are projecting a claim that does not exist.
And you have
that the documentary said you have been paid. The documentary says the value of the contract as of 2023 was over $100 million. That's what they said.
SML will be paid, I've also listened to this, SML will be paid $100 million every year. That is what the documentary put out there to viewers. And many people took it to say that SML has taken $100 million, which puts us in a very bad light, which is wrong. And that is what we are saying, that we have been exonerated, that people who believe that SML has taken money illegally now can see clearly that this is an attempt to discredit SML, bring down our reputation, That is what we are saying. Now, I just want to...
The last issue you raised, that the contracts, as it is, you have complied with every legal thing and so on. Do you realize that the audit and the presidency statement confirms that because it's a multi-year contract, there's a need for parliamentary approval? You have ministerial and parliamentary. There's no parliamentary approval. So how do you say it complies with every legal requirement?
Like I have said, we are not the custodian of the contracts. We are beneficiaries. So I would defer that question to the custodians of the
go to
contract,
what you wanted to go
GRA
to. Right.
And then the finance ministry.
Go to what you
Let
wanted
them do
to
that.
to.
So I have seen a classic case of the first gentleman displaying lack of domain understanding. SML is not working for NPA. SML don't have anything to do with NPA. SML is working with GRA, and GRA contracted SML for what? There is a critical need to plug in revenue leakage in the tax revenue. That is why SML was brought into the downstream petroleum. So we are working with GRA. We don't work with NPA. What SML came into the downstream petroleum to do, first of all, to support GRA, to plug in this challenge. And what have we done? Both NPA and GRA in the downstream petroleum, who represent the government, they both don't have meters. They rely on the depot meter. When they were making the claim, the first gentleman who came to make the claims, he's saying that NPA has flow meters. NPA, it's a lie. That is not true. And NPA was certified to that. We have a copy of a letter here. Let me read a portion of this. This is from NPA. What NPA is saying, the title of this letter is Installation of Electronic Metering System by Strategic Mobilization Ghana Limited. The NPA over the past years has instituted some technological interventions in the petroleum downstream industry aimed at improving controls and curbing illicit activities in the downstream in the industry. The authority plans to introduce further measures to monitor inflows and outflows of petroleum products from the depots in the country. It has therefore taken note with keen interest that the initiative by the GRA to install electronic metering systems at the depot. The authority, however, would like to be appraised on the functionalities of the electronic metering systems. We therefore hereby request for closer collaboration between the two authorities, that is NPA and GRA, so as to avoid duplication of efforts in our attempt to sanitize the petroleum downstream industry. This is an NPA letter. This is clearly showing that NPA is not doing the work that SML was brought into the downstream to do.
Let's look at some bigger pictures. And Ghanaians are asking that you were paid 1 billion cedis. The report says there was the increment is 2.4 billion cedis. Are you able to tell Ghanaians what percentage of the increment you are entitled to, that you are able to do work for 2 billion and you benefit from 1 billion? Do you think it's a justifiable question?
Okay, before I come to that, let me finish this, because this is very important information that Ghanaians need to know.
Which one is that?
The duplication of effort, because clearly there is lack of domain understanding, and that is
lack
what
of domain understanding, including your own IT guru. In the documentary, Manasseh asked him a direct question. If you were to choose between your system and what the NPA has, which one will you? And he says the NPA's own is superior. Yeah. He asked the NPA boss, Mustafa Hamid, what is going on? He says, I don't understand what is happening. And he says, with emphasis, that he intends to call all of you, the parties, to understand what exactly you are doing, because from where he sits, what you are doing is potentially duplicitous, his words.
Well, and I have the letter to prove also, because this is a letter signed by Honorable Mustafa Hamid, also saying that it is good initiative that we even go ahead and form operational team for installing tank gauging system, which Bryce Simons was saying that NPA is doing it. That is why I want to set the record straight that what they are saying SML is doing, NPA is doing, is wrong. It's not the situation in the industry, okay? So NPA are regulators. They are ensuring that product quality is good, pricing is fair. They are ensuring that they give licensing for people, the BDCs and the OMCs. That is their work. They concern with the loading, the trading of the products. GRA, on the other hand, is the authority to ensure that they collect tax in the downstream.
Does it bother you that the assessment cumulative of the work you do, which is needed to determine the questions of tax, when that question came up in the documentary, it was established clearly by the GRA that they don't depend on your work to determine the tax. So the question Ghanaians have been asking, what is the use of your work?
That is what I'm coming to. So now we work with GRA. What do we do? SML has provided meters that they didn't have, both NPA and GRA. They don't have meters. Yet we are selling or we are trading and monitoring petroleum products. We have deployed that meters. And now what that is doing is that it's checking the accuracy of the meter, that the business people's meter, which is the depot meter that both NPA and GRA rely on. Now also we have digitized the waybill, that is the pin sheet in the downstream. What this waybill does is that if there is a dispute, we can show with so many, if viewers Google OMC's indebtedness with GRA, there are so many OMCs who are owing government and they went to court. GRA cannot take government's money for government because there is no evidence. The pin sheet is not there because they were stored in sacks before we came. We have digitalized that. And what this means is that we have the information that this tanker at this day loaded this product. And so when we sit for reconciliation, after the data has been transferred to GRA system, which is the ICOM systems, we have the evidence to know that the data that was transferred from the ELDMS, which is the NPA system, is the same that is in the ICOMs.
Interesting.
Before SMLs come in,
okay.
And then apart from the digitization and the meters, we are giving real-time insights.
All right.
The lack of real-time insight in the petroleum industry
the report confirms that
is the loss of revenue.
Okay.
If you don't have insight into what is happening now, you are not able to stop OMCs who have exceeded their limit.
So as we understood, your services were that you were checking under declaration, dilution, and diversion of petroleum products.
No. We will not go there. I will not go there because what this is saying is that this was on your website. I'm coming there. Now, the website, in the person who is writing this own statement, he says that where we advertise, a website, Samson, you know what a website is. It's a place that brands or companies advertise what they can do. They create brand awareness. They interact with their clients. They tell potential clients, this is what we do. It's not a scope of work of a contract.
Oh, so you were speaking in general terms, what you are involved in.
SML is not made by GRA. SML is a company on its own. We are open for business. We can do gas revenue collection. We can do revenue assurance and audit for electric. We can do for water. We can do revenue assurance for public sector institutions. We have the innovative solution.
So you do this, but it's not connected to this contract.
Yes. So for the person who is doing this or writing this, to say that we want to assess, we are doing an investigation that is assessing the need of the contract. So from there, we jump straight to the website to see that they are doing the work that they say they'll do. It's wrong, it's misleading.
So what do you then say to Christian Soti, your managing director, who said this was on the website in error, and the GRA were also unhappy about this piece of information on your website?
The website is not the scope of contract, the scope of work of the contract. When the president wanted to ascertain this allegation, what did he do? He told KPMG, this is the directive, go and check for me the scope, what is the work? Check the current activities of the company against the scope of the contract and see whether they align or there are deviations.
I get that. But okay, if this is what you do generally, what you do generally, and your MD says this was put there in error, then right after that interview, you take this down from your website. How do you explain that?
We've not done anything of the sort. The whole expose, so-called, has been proven to be a lie and misleading video to misguide and disinform Ghanaians about a reputable company, a multi-million-dollar company that is working so hard to bring revenue to the nation for development. That is what was done.
I asked you that question.
That is what was done.
I asked you that question. 2 billion and you get 1 billion. How do you justify that?
Yes, let me come there. Now, if you look at what we said, we've thrown that out, and we are saying that we have done more than that, and the source that KPMG is used for this, we don't accept it.
Oh, KPMG is wrong.
We disagree with that. If you look at the response that we brought, SML's response, press release, that is what we are saying, that you cannot use the data source, which is the NPA and SLS data, to mark our performance. Because the reason why earlier on I was saying that I need to make very clear distinction between what we are doing and what NPA is doing. There is a volume that we have. When we are lifting products, there are loading volumes. That is the NPA's volume. And then we have taxable volumes. That is the volume that comes to government to take tax from. That volume is what we are concerned about. That volume is what SML was brought into the scene to make sure that it comes to the level of the NPA.
I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you very much.
You are say some few things.
Yeah, just in
first of all,
2 minutes or so.
Is that your contract? Was this company initially?
You're asking him a questions for answers.
No. I just want to understand something because I've read somewhere that this company was initially dealing in forestry products.
So it is rather has a history in timber.
In timber, yes. Timber is a forestry product. There's a history in timber, so it's a forestry product. Well, you see, so let me say to all Ghanaians, it's very important that even with the discussions we've had this morning, apart from what we've read, this contract appears to be an opaque contract, shrouded in secrecy, smacks of corruption, and riddled with illegality.
You have said that already.
Yes, so, well, the president should release the report. But I can assure you, and assure the whole of Ghanaians, that if the president refuses or neglects to release the report, in 7 months' time, he will be gone. The report will be made up.
All right.
And you know, Samson,
yes,
time does not run.
Thank you.
The commission.
Thank you. Bright, if I can get just about 2 minutes of your wrapping statement with you. It's been a bit difficult to get to admit some things which are actually factual. On their website, they stated that the SML digitalization of downstream petroleum product measurement has stemmed the tide of underreporting, diversion, and dilution of fuel products, and general non-compliance in the petroleum industry sector, end quotes. She's telling me a different story now here, But we can't have this forever. We must stop at a point. So your final comments, maybe in 2 minutes, please.
It's important that, I mean, your guest, Ms. Sewa, if I'm correct, that's three things. One is he insults my intelligence and claims I don't have domain knowledge to comment on the matter. And then secondly, she accuses me of misinforming the public and peddling lies. And then thirdly, she refuses to engage with the fact that the contract that her company has collected 1 billion cedis from and which pays her salary is illegal according to the president of the country because it does not have parliamentary approval. Let's tackle the first issue around the meters, which he claims, you know, I have no domain knowledge because I don't seem to understand that MPA is not their customer. Of course, MPA is not their customer. They have a contract with GRE, but the GRE systems must interconnect with the MPA systems in order to have an end-to-end value chain system. And it is the MPA itself, working together with Rock Africa and others, that have announced that they've started implementing flow meters at various depots and retail outlets, and that is an ongoing process. They've done a pilot with 20 stations, and that will continue. I didn't make those things happen. Rock Africa said it has a partnership with Access from Singapore, and that these mechanisms are being provided, and over time, MP will have end-to-end visibility. What she's establishing now on the show is that MPA is lying to Ghanaians about these interventions. Now, if indeed MPA is correct in its assessment that the ERDMS backed by these systems will achieve the end goal, right? Then what that they are doing is duplicative. So that's number one. So I didn't make this up. This is information that everybody can go and check. A second thing that, you know, it's also important, establish without any doubt whatsoever that the solutions that they are put out on the market are on-the-shelf solutions. These are Honeywell solutions. We've looked at those items, we've looked at the specifications and the rest of it. There's nothing innovative or original about it. Anybody can go and get it. That leads then to the question that you asked. Having been formed in February 2017, where the people that have founded the company had a background in timber producing, on what basis was it clear that the company had the systems and the culture in place to benefit from a single sourcing arrangement? Well, we have companies in this country that have been doing this already. And when the fact of the matter is that this particular open source single sourcing arrangement was considered invalid by the PPA. You cannot run away from that.
All right.
You don't get from them within 4 months. Get a single source arrangement.
Well, she says if you try the first time, you fail, you go again. Despite that they are an ethical company, if they are refused twice, they will go a third time, and they were lucky, third time.
You don't then continue collecting the money for 4 years, yeah, and then have it ratified. After you have been rejected by the PPA, the government continues paying you. And for that reason, Ms. Sewa gets the salaries that she gets, which gives her the confidence to come into the studio of Joy FM and accuse the rest of us of ignorance and lack of intelligence in addressing this matter. I think that she's been very unfair to us.
All right.
But the point is very clear. The contract that they are currently operating on is illegal or is laid before the people's representative in Parliament. There's no doubt about that.
That's not their fault. That's not SML's fault. That is the state's. That's the duty of the state.
True, but the duty of the state must now be performed. They must send a contract to Parliament. They must stop paying them until that illegality is addressed, and then we'll meet them in Parliament.
All right. Bright Simmons, thank you very much. I'm sorry. We have to take a break.
If you are a company,
no, we can't go on and.
No, I'm just going to make this point. If you are a company, you have a duty to ensure that your other contractor, your partners, comply with the law.
Especially when you are dealing with the state.
Because it is
All right.
Thank
you very much. My guest on this matter that's really very, very. Okay. Sewa Sapong, Director of Support Services Strategic Mobilization Limited. Inus Afuseni, lawyer, former MP Tamale Central, and former Minister Lands and Natural Resources, Roads and Highways. Bright Simmons is Honorary Vice President, Imani, Africa. From what I can see, we obviously may not be able to do the third issue. So we will go and come back and deal with the second one. We'll be right back. Emmanuel J. Bequin says, why has SML decided to embarrass this lady on Newsfile today? the struggle to defend this stinking SML deal is real. Dr. Theo Champong says the SML lady on Newsfile has made very little sense in her submissions. The contract should be abrogated, especially for upstream petroleum and mining bits. Oh, I think that the president has said so. Revenue assurance is needed in these sectors, but this is not how to do so. Collins Little Tete says that nothing ripping off the taxpayer will slip through unnoticed. Thank you, Bright Simmons. Selom Domoji says SML sent a rookie as their rep on Newsfile, and she's trying so hard to display her ignorance. The lady can barely speak to the issues of interest. One thing is certain, nothing in SML's case against the Fourth Estate. No, okay, I won't do that. I will stop there. K. Amwa says, according to Sewa of SML, the company can do revenue assurance for Ghana's public service organizations. What are we doing to this country? PK says, Madam Sewa Sapong should be put on the stand to repeat these words, because for the life of me, I can't understand why she thinks putting buzzwords together qualifies SML to be awarded a contract. She was brought to do PR, but we have passed that stage. And finally, Peter Doe says, it appears this whole GRSML annual Ghana 1 billion contract saga, Akufo-Addo and his, don't use those derogatory terms. I will not be a conveyor belt for them. Thank you very much. Ken says, where have they previously put the innovation she's talking about into practice for them to have acquired the experience? Just on paper, if I say, quote, would be paid, end quotes, and the public decodes it, or you decode it otherwise, why must I be faulted that people understood it to mean I said you have been paid? All right, thanks for all those input. There are too many of your messages on this, but we have to move on with the discussion. And let's listen quickly to the NDC's running mate, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman.
Not in the advancement of self-serving ambition, declare to the whole world that I was only the driver's mate. You will find the lack of intimidation of opposing voices. You will find serious investment and practice to enable a digitized economy and society. The reports will go on to point at housing projects, including the famous Saglemi housing complex, and even those that somebody has happily raised to make room for a presumed. John and I have agreed that whoever has participated in the plunder of the state must be held accountable. And my friends, this is not a threat, it is a promise.
Right. So she's been saying a number of things, and people say that she appears to have changed her politics, or is it her rhetoric rather? Let's check if that is the winning game for the NDC. Joining me is Dennis Miracles Abuaje, Director of Communications for Baumia 2024 campaign. And on Zoom is Dr. Theo Champong, Economist and Political Risk Analyst. Let's begin with Inusa Fuseni. Is there anything different you see in her? People appear to say the speech was quite, improved from what she has done previously. She was, as it were, jabbing.
Well, what happened last Wednesday was a celebration of a difference. her difference, what she brings on board, her vision, and her role in the future NDC government. The articulation of what a woman can do. The fact that in her speech, she concentrated and spoke largely on issues and matters confronting this country, shifting political discourse from personalization and name calling to politics of issues. I have no doubt, and when I sat and listened to her, I've known her for a very long time, even before she came into government as a Minister for Education. I was privileged to be a member of the Ghana UNESCO committee, a representative, that's to say, on the legal committee of Ghana UNESCO committee, and I was with her in France when Professor Mills nominated her to serve on the UNESCO board, and what she did at the board. So I've known her for a very long time. I have never had any doubt about her capabilities and what she brings on board to politics and her contributions to Ghana in general. She's produced many students who are students of repute or people of repute in this country, contributing in diverse ways to the development of this country. Now, so she brought the difference in what we can see in politics on that day. And that's why her speech connected in a very meaningful way with Ghanaians. That, look, I hear many people say and ask questions, what does she bring on board? It is the same Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. I said she brings many things on board, and she even demonstrated it in the 2000 elections. For the first time, NDC won, apart from the time of Rawlings, NDC won majority of seats in the Central Region. I mean, in the 2000 elections, the only unknown quantity on the NDC ticket was Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. So if we're speaking mathematically, she contributed because she was the only unknown. Now, NDC recovered from a 106 seats in Parliament to 137 seats in Parliament. And you think that she played no role? You think so? For the first time in the history of this country, NDC garnered over 6 million votes. Again, the only unknown quantity on the ticket was Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman. For the first time in the history of this country, NDC produced a speaker. I mean, she's not a member of parliament, but her contribution to the fortunes of the party manifested in the production of a speaker. And MPP will agree that in the 2000 elections, their votes was significantly reduced, taking 2016 as a benchmark. So she brings a lot on board. And if you are looking at political trajectory and how parties win power, all these matters count. Is the party doing well or not doing well? If the party goes into elections and is not improving on its fortunes, then something is wrong. The party improved on its fortunes in 2020 when Jane Nana came on board. But Jane Nana in 2024 is demonstrating an understanding, an unparalleled understanding of the issues confronting this country. He's deprecating the rampant and pervasive corruption. We just finished with the SML, and you yourself, I could see it on your face, you were quite worried about how SML got the contract and how they went about it.
There's no act to find the mind's construction in the face.
Well, the manifestation of the mind manifests on the face. So clearly, definitely, and I tell you, Samson, what a few years ago, seemed unimaginable now appears to be inevitable.
You speak to you project her, and John Mahama also said so, that she has a certain global acceptability and that she is a person of unquestionable integrity.
Yes.
You know that in this election you are going into, and the manner in which you project her, she will have to take questions about her stewardship.
Yes.
And you're already projecting that if she became vice president, she will be responsible for, among others, education, social protection, and health. Questions will be asked.
Yes.
What she did with that ministry.
She did a lot. I'm not going to, because she's not running as president, she's running as vice president. I'm not going to even engage in her performance. I say that we are bringing somebody on board who understands our issues and who connects with us. But Professor Jinano Pukajima is available to answer all questions. Her integrity is par excellence. Her reputation for speaking the truth is admired and appreciated by all. And Samson, it is said that truth is never afraid of conversation. Because of her truth, she's not afraid of conversation. So if you bring your issues, she will deal with them as truthfully as she can. And we need such people going forward.
What do you say to your critics who say, if you are projecting her as a woman of unquestionable integrity or unquestioned integrity, you are seeking to say she will make up for the weaknesses of John Mahama?
When we say so, we're seeking to project the strength of a woman. Mind you, Plato had warned us many, many years ago that you cannot seek to develop your community when you keep one half of that community perpetually subjugated. You need to enhance them. You need to manifest them. You need to empower them. When we project Nana, we are projecting womanhood. You need to understand that for a very long time, many people, including deep-seated chauvinists, have said, who is Nana? Some have even gone further to say that a woman cannot rule this country. That's chauvinism, to say the least. They're being chauvinist.
Okay.
So we're just projecting who Nana is. She made a lot of cracks in the ceiling.
Now,
she's going to collapse the ceiling, the glass ceiling now.
Take a breather and hear from those you are contesting. Dennis, you certainly must be thinking how you will answer to a Jenana ticket. Gender issues, equality issues, inclusivity.
Samson, let me say a very warm good morning to you and to Asidia. And I like the energy. It's quite good. And let me also congratulate the NDC. I mean, these things really go to strengthen our democracy. If we look around our sub-region, we can barely find countries who really drive their democracy the way we do. I mean, this is the second outdooring of the running mate of the NDC. I'm sure probably there'll be a third one, and maybe the original one. And I think it's all good. Honestly, it's really, really good because, Samson, for us as a country, in spite of all the challenges, the kind of democracy we have is crucial that we protect. But again, I hear the NDC speak, and I really was very attentive to Honorable Edouce Fuseni, and I'm wondering, what exactly are they projecting onto us as a people? We have our ambitions and aspirations as a country, and what we are looking for as results, as solutions to these teething challenges that we every day strive to get ourselves out of. So for us, if you're going to give us a leader, and you're going to project the leader onto us, tell us cogently, specifically, without any ambiguity, what that person brings to the table to solve our problems for us. That is it. Without that, the fact that the person is a woman or a man means nothing to us. The fact that the person is tall or short doesn't mean anything to me. Fair or dark means nothing. Ever, Gan, Ashanti, Achim means nothing. I want solutions. I want an educational system that would ensure that no child of mine is left at home.
They say she was.
She's
the first woman vice chancellor of a public university.
If it doesn't give me access to education, it means nothing. They are accolades to herself, her family, and her political party. We want solutions, Samson. And so after they've done all these self-aggrandizements for 2-3 days, it's time for them to drop it. And let's talk about substance. Let's go into the issues. It's very important. I mean, Professor Nana is an academic professor, a vice chancellor. It's no shock if she's able to stand in front of a crowd and deliver a speech. It's nothing new. That's what she does her entire life. Show her that respect. Give it to her. That's her job. Every day, that's what she does. And so if she stands on a stage and delivers, kudos to her. But how does that cure the fact that when she was education minister, she led the cancellation of allowances for the poor? How does that change it? How that does change the fact that when she was education minister, schools did not have even chalks, to the point that the second lady, the wife of our former vice president, His Excellency Ebisata, had a cause to stand in front of the full glare of the camera and say that we will not give you chalks today, we will not give you chalks tomorrow if you teachers cannot use your money to buy the chalks. That, for me, are the conversations that the Ghanaian people want to hear. They want you to give us that reassurance that how you conducted yourself when we gave you this same role, you will do better. And you would first of all show us your scorecard and tell us how you intend not to repeat any of the things we did not want. It's not enough for an opposition party to come and list the sins and the ills of an incumbent. There is no incumbent government that you cannot list sins and ills. What you do is that beyond the sins, the listing of the sins and ills, give us what your alternative is. And disappointedly so, she missed the mark. She missed that big opportunity to make that lasting impact on the minds of Ghanaians about who she represents and how she intends to work with the president to take us to the level that we want to get to.
She did.
That mark she missed. For example, so she speaks and then, and I have the statement here. So you'd realize that from the day she spoke till now, all we hear is that she spoke very well. She's an improvement over 2020. You can realize that she's becoming a politician. She's articulating. Is that what we are looking for? Then we should.
Bawumia went through the same phase.
But that's not. Bawumia was articulating policies.
He went through the same phase.
No, we never projected Bawumia.
It took him a while.
We never.
Before he began his lectures.
We never projected Bawumia as an orator. We never said, oh, he's spoken so well. We said, Bawumia says when he comes, he's going to work with Nanado, so we get one ambulance, one constituency. Why? Because we believe that our emergency services are poor. Bawumia says that we need to drive the fundamentals of the economy to reduce our dependence on imports. And so we need to increase production. When we come, we would work with private sector to ensure that districts are harnessing on their raw materials to get factories in those districts. Bawumia says that when we come to power, we believe that as a country, we cannot continue to churn out young people onto the street without quality education. So he says, I'll support my president, we'll deliver free senior high school.
She speaks about shared prosperity.
But you don't
how
remember
we need
that.
to sacrifice and work to get to that.
Perfect. But you don't recall nobody.
And it is important. You know that. You of all people know that how fluent you are in making your presentations in the political campaign is very important.
That's the point.
When Bawumia was first outdoored, I was embedded in his team. And we went around the country before I moved from his team and joined Nanado's team. One of the concerns was that he was not able to project properly until the next time round. Then he took everybody by storm. And you guys celebrated it.
No. Never did we celebrate and project Bawumia onto the people of Ghana. in a manner that says that here we are with the vice president that speaks so well. We never did that. What we did is what I've told you. Bawumia came in with solutions specific to our challenges. Now you have to dig into the speech to find some of the things she said. Why? Because they've clouded the entire conversation with she spoke well, she was throwing jabs, and you remember your introductory statement to him. That's what you recall. And I'm sorry, it's not just you. The millions of Ghanaians watching us, some say that's what they recall. And it's sad, it's unfortunate that we have a running mate that is seeking to support a presidential candidate, and all we can recall 3-4 days after her speech is how good she was in throwing jabs, throwing shades, and oratory skills. That is a problem. And I'll come to some part of the statement that maybe they themselves have refused to highlight, which is of substance to the people. And I'll concentrate on that. So she says that in their government, they are going to ensure that by the time they are leaving office, and she said, I envisage a report of the administration of His Excellency John Mahama on the ticket of the NDC who justifies his return. He says the report will have no reference to the following. Then she lists all the ills of the MPP government. Fantastic. But you know what? She missed the point. You have been president before, and you were Minister of Education under that presidency. The people of this country are skeptical. They are wondering, what new are you coming to? What new thing are you coming to do? How do we trust that whatever it is that you did to us, you will not repeat? Indeed, there is a government that has given us electricity for 7 years, but has plunged us into energy difficulties for 10 weeks. So we have a choice to make. Samson, we need to make a decision between two governments who have history of energy crisis.
But you inherited a resolved energy crisis.
We never did. How do you get into a difficulty of something that is resolved? How? What are you talking about?
You told us actually about excess capacity.
Rollins, hold on. Rollins, tell me from 1992, which of the government hasn't seen energy crisis? And which of them never said we resolved it? Tell me. The difference between the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government is that this government kept energy on for 7 years. No government has done that since 1992.
But there were capacity issues. And the John Mahama regime is the one known to have gotten us to a point where you said now there is excess capacity.
The population in 1992 and the capacity then, have you ever run the correlation to understand how many we were and the capacity we had then? Have you ever done that correlation to understand? So, no, Samson, let me make that point. It's very important. Have you ever done that analysis to understand where we were in the time during Kufuor we had the crisis and where we were under Mahama when we had the crisis? The fact is that you had generators and yet we're in darkness. Does it make sense? Have you ever thought about that? That you keep making the argument about capacity, which is true. Indeed, a lot of generators were borrowed and taken on credit, which we are still paying, no doubt about that. But ask yourself, how come we had all these generators during the tenure of John Mahama and yet we're in darkness? That had always been our point, that the energy crisis under Mahama was purely a financial issue. Why? Because you had borrowed generators, you didn't have to do much, because all you had to do is to go and tell the people that bring it to me, whether I use the power or not, I'll pay you. And then they come and put it there on credit. Then you don't have the money to buy the power, the fuel to power it. And so, indeed, the fact is that for 3 years out of your 4 years, we were plunged in darkness. For 7 years out of the 8 years, we've had power except for 10 good weeks. Let me make this up. So, the people of Ghana have a decision to make.
Okay.
A decision between a party that plunged us into darkness for 3 out of 4 years and one that has given us power for 7 years, and we are difficult for 7.
Now hold that there. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you as you go into the specific
issues. Because I'm not done.
Yes, Dr. Thierry Champong, what will you say? Is Dennis justified in saying, yes, we got sound bites. Beyond that, no substance?
There definitely were sound bites. As we say, she threw some shades, right, quote and unquote. But there were substantive issues that she also raised, and I'll come to that in a moment. But I think Dennis made an important point on the energy sector being a financial issue during the GM administration. And the interesting thing is that the current doomsday that we're going through is also a financial issue. The money were there to buy the fuel to actually power some of those plants, we wouldn't be going through the current doomsday or power rationing that we're having for the last couple of weeks. So it's important to situate things in the right context. I think, yes, the woman spoke very well, and she came across, at least for those of us who may not be as close to her as Honorable Fuseni and others, compared to 2020, she came across as being much more, assertive and direct in her posture and in the things that she was saying. And she spoke to the issues that, Ghanaians sort of care about in that respect. Number two, she's also a known face, or has been a known face, and she's been marketed once before as the running mate of John Mahama, and this then sort of adds a further credence into that direction going forward. The question now really for me becomes, to what extent would this translate into votes, particularly in some of the core coastal constituencies or regions that could decide the outcome of the 2024 election. So here I'm talking specifically about Western North, Central, and Greater Accra. And then when you also look at the other demographics that she spoke to directly, the women and then also the youth. So she at one point even, I think, asked whether the youth were in the room, and she got some response to that.
Maternity leave and the women's bank.
If you look at the women's vote, I mean, on the 2020 records, it's about 52% out of 17 million, valid voters in the country. Of course, she's not going to get all of that. But again, the question remains whether or not in the next few months to come, she will be able to posture herself enough to attract a lot of that vote. And then when you look at the youth vote, which for me I'm even more interested in, that if you've got 74% of your population below the age of 35, and for those that are actually voting based on the 2016 and the 2020 data, about 62-65% of that voting population of bloc is the youth vote, then again it becomes quite interesting to see to what extent this new assertive or bold Nana that we're seeing in the public domain. I'm not saying that she's not in her private life, but I'm saying in terms of the posture and the political communication and the rhetoric, it comes across that, she's being presented to us as this, new entity. So again, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then I think one other thing that it was sort of missing, and then I'll come to the policies that I think she talked about, which Dennis has not highlighted. And I mean, he's from the other side, so that's to be understood. And then for those of us who are in the civil space academic, our job is to interrogate, both. But I didn't see a defense of her track record in government then, and then also as Minister of Education, using some of the metrics like, the enrollment ratio or the provision of input and all of that. I thought that she could have brought a little bit of that into the conversation just to pivot and to tell Ghanaians, what then she's bringing to the ticket, because some people may have forgotten, and it's important to do that. But on the specific policy issues, there are some things that are mentioned in her speech. So she talks about, or gives a bit more context to the 24-hour, economy. And I think she mentioned somewhere in the speech that they will pay special attention to skilled training, and that they would be in the Tree language, quote unquote, insano, ejuma. And so they would do a number of reforms within that space, and related to that also introduce a 1 million coders, program, which would allow a number of the youth into things like coding, data science, and other fields. I mean, this is not that different from some of the interventions that are already happening in the space under the current, administration. And then she also talks about prosecuting corruption and people that have squandered the resource wealth and other things. So there are a number of things in there that she talks about, but fundamentally, the point now really becomes to what extent in the next 4 or 5 months would this then translate, right, into potential votes? Because at the end of the day, despite the outdooring, despite what we've seen, it has to translate into the incremental votes that the NDC is looking for. So it's going to be a very interesting and exciting campaign. And I think really by August or September, we would really know who is going to win this election.
Right. But it will matter who will partner Bawumia. So we may have to be patient to watch who will partner Bawumia before we continue in this trajectory. Please hold on. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Now, so you would have expected that. I didn't have to tell you that your opponents will dig into what she had done, her previous life, to measure whether, how much we should take what she says. They've just started.
Well, I expected that, but I never expected Dennis to go through that route. But he's going through that route has exposed me to the understanding of to how MPP understands governance. They understand governance in silos. Bawumia should come with its vision. Akufo-Addo came with his vision. So governance is not a manifestation of the collection of the wishes of the people reflected in the party's manifesto. That's what I listened to him, that's what I came to. That is their understanding of governance. That's not governance. And that's why we have this problem. That is why Bawumia is running away from the deeds of Nana Akufo-Addo.
How has he done that?
He's done that by saying that he was not in the front seat. He's done that. But as a lawyer, that the Constitution,
he has shown you how
the Constitution makes the vice president an elected vice president.
He has told you how he would do certain things differently. And that's a fact. That constitutionally, he doesn't have the power to do the things you expected that he would have done.
Yeah, but the constitutionally doesn't have the power to do, and he knew that as a vice president. He doesn't have that power. Authoritative power rests in the executive, and the executive arm of government is equated to the president. I mean, if you read Article 58 and 296, you will be left in no doubt.
Correct.
I have no doubt about that. But you also know that severally, Bawumia has acted as president of this country. Severally. That to tell you that our system recognizes the role of a vice president in keeping the country together. Now, but I won't go that. I won't engage in debate. He's talked about chalk. Chalks, let me tell you, if chalks were a political campaign, in 2022, it was reported, and it was reported by your sister station, Adum FM, of shortage of chalk and other learning materials hit schools. If chalks were the standard, I don't think MPP would be excused from that malay, because that's 2022. He also
so she can be excused. That's what
he
you're
also
saying.
displays a remarkable lack of understanding of our energy situation in this country. Dennis displays that.
Really?
Yes. Energy consumption is tied to population. There's a direct relationship between population and the amount of energy available. So the installed energy we had when we went national grid and the installed energy that we have today has increased because of population.
Yeah, that's the point I made.
No, let me talk.
That's what I understood.
Yes.
That's what I understood.
No, yes, no, he's not saying, he didn't say that.
Okay.
Oh, let me tell you why he didn't say that.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
No, he didn't say that.
I was surprised.
That's what he thinks he said, but
No,
he didn't
got
say
it
that.
wrong. That's what I said.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, it's fine.
We've had governance in this country. NDC, MPP, NDC, MPP. Increase in energy, installed energy, is by investment in thermal plants. Tell me one thermal plant that President Kufuor had set up in the 8 years of his administration, or Nana Akufo-Addo has set up in his 7 years of administration? Give me one.
You are discounting Bui.
Bui was not built by Nana Akufo.
How?
No, Akufo got. I was the deputy minister of energy. I was the deputy minister of energy. Bui was not built by Akufo. Akufo got $160 million to start Bui. Not even 5% of the work of Bui had been done. I mean, if you are going to say that, then you say that. Okay. If you are going to say that, then you say that Kong was built by thermal plant was built by Akufo.
Okay.
So if you then let me demonstrate for you too. If you say that there were machines, that's what he said. There were machines. You then needed money to put fuel in those machines. I say that in 2012, the installed capacity of this country was 2,600. Between 2,600 and 2,800. Today, the installed capacity of this country is 5,626. The consumption, even if John Mahama did not do anything at all, the power would not have been able to go around.
Okay, thank you.
Because today we are consuming 3,251 megawatts at peak. So it's the incremental installation of power plants that has gotten us here.
Thank you.
You have not done any power plants.
You hear from Theo Champong, and he shows you that substance. He has some things, even though he sounds like he would have wished to have had more. I don't know if I'm not projecting you correctly. You can explain.
That's all I'm talking about. I mean, what Theo said is all I am talking about. That here we are. Theo, I know Theo very well. Theo digs into issues. And Theo struggled to mention more than two. Really? Theo managed to mention 24-hour economy, which is even poorly still explained by the running mate. And then goes on to mention what's the other thing?
Nsanu Ejuma.
And then there was another one Theo mentioned. Prosecution. That he prosecute. I mean, these are the two things Theo mentioned when he was supposed to mention.
He mentioned other things which he says they are already
and you can imagine
being pursued now.
Connected to the 24-hour economy. And you can imagine the struggle they are putting Theo in. Because Theo Achiampo that I know should have these things on his fingertips if they were there. That is not even the point. The point is that why aren't the NDC projecting those things on us? Why are they projecting poetry and oratory skills on us? That is our problem. The woman herself, the professor, and I said this because I find it very disrespectful to her. The manner in which they are trying to make it look like she's done something extraordinary from what she was supposed to have done. The woman herself has a track record listed clearly, categorically in her handing over report. And then the woman said, when we are leaving power, we are going to have a report that will not have this, that will not have that, that will not have that, mention all the ills. What she should have done is to tell the Ghanaian people that when I was leaving, I left a report, and this is directly from her handing over notes. I left a report that indicated that I had not paid for 2014-2016 feeding grants to our schools, 106.69 million. I left a report that said that I had not paid subsidy to the senior high schools for 2014 and 2016.
Is that Ministry of Finance's job or Education?
No, that is her job. She receives the resources and she needs to align the resources.
Educhum presently faces some of the financial difficulties. You won't blame it on him because he's not the one
Educhum would account for his stewardship. So let her account. Why didn't she leave this for Finance Ministry to put in their handing over report? This is her scorecard, and I'm not even done. She should have told the people that when I come, I will no longer leave over 100,000 Ghanaians out of senior high school every year for poverty and lack of infrastructure. And tell us how she's actually going to achieve that. Because her handing over report is here. She should tell us how she's not going to leave 33.4 million that was supposed to be paid for progressive senior high school education, and she didn't pay. She should have told us how she built a day school 5 kilometers away from Asasewa. No communities around the day school for the people of Upper Menya. A day school. How she expected these students to move from Asasewa Township and walk 5 kilometers to that school. And how she's not going to inflict on us all these damages again.
So we have
Samson, there are 78 points in her report that I thought that what she should have done is to tell the people of Ghana that I'm here again. This is what I did when you gave me the power initially.
Should be vice president.
But I promise you.
Not for a ministry.
If I make you class prefect and you come to me that you want to be school prefect, I have to check how you performed as class prefect.
Interesting.
That is why Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, when he's speaking, outlines all the things that he has been mandated to do by the president, and he has done it very, very well before he moves to his vision. Final point, just 2 seconds. You recall when Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia speaks about all the things he's done, they will say, go and mention the other things. But you heard the former president indicate categorically sectors that he's going to assign to the vice president.
That's right.
If the vice president is the same as the president, why is the president saying that he will assign sectors to him?
Right. Theo, we have just about a minute to go. What will be your very final comment? And as always, my outfit these days is by Konati Clothing. You can find them at Adenta Shopping Center, Adenta Down. You can call Konati Clothing 0244 67 67 32. Hello, Dr. Champon.
Something very interesting. I just want to pick from where Miracles left off, right? In the sense that 2024 is the same standard that he's talking about is what will be used to judge all the candidates.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a question or an election based on trust, yes. Number 2, credibility, and number 3, competence. And Ghanaians will make a choice on the basis of this. The last small point I want to make also is the attempt to pivot her away from also all this other conversation about EMT and all of that, she's going to have a direct oversight of the social sectors, health, education, social protection, and things like that. And I think that's also a very good thing to note, because it goes really to some of the reforms and other things that we've been advocating for.
Thank you very much. And this show is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 33 plus years. My Way Insurance, dial *163 *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks is strong, it's tough. Flamingo Paint, simply superior. And DBS Industries, roofing, Papa Fie. And my guests have been Dr. Theo Champong, economist and political risk analyst. Inus of Seni is lawyer and former MP, and also former minister. Dennis Miracles Abuaje is director of communications for the Bawumia 2024 campaign. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. Have a good afternoon.